Yeah, this is VK3SL. This is a test transmission on 160 metres, 2 metres, and I'm also streaming a regular Friday night test on these airs, and we give it a go tonight in the midst of a heat wave. It's like an oven in here. It would be probably easier if I'd set up in a sauna, I think. So I suppose the best way to deal with this is to have some hot dance band music to sort of set the scene. So we'll get the ball rolling with J.C. Flippin' and from 1926, and we hear Babyface.
Babyface, you got the cutest little baby face. There's not another one can take your place. Babyface, my poor heart is jumping. You sure have started something, babyface. I'm up in heaven when I'm in your fond embrace. I didn't need a shove, 'cause I just fell in love with your pretty baby face. Rosy cheeks and turned up nose and curly hair. I'm raving about my baby now. And pretty little dimples here and dimples there. Don't want to live without her. I love her, goodness knows. I done wrote a song about her, and here's the way it goes. That baby face, you got the cutest little baby face. There's not another one can take your place. Baby face, my poor heart is jumping. You sure have started something, baby face. I'm up in heaven when I'm in your fond embrace. I didn't need no shove, 'cause I just naturally fell in love with your pretty baby face. Asking alimony, it's a funny case. For since she got the ring, I've called her everything. Oh yes, everything but baby face. Turn it over.
Yes, we will turn it over, and we heard Babyface. That was Jay Flippin and the orchestra. Now, I think Flippin made some Vitaphone shorts. Am I right, Chris? Yes, he'll have a take on that. Yeah, well, I thought it'd be a sort of a nice way to get the ball rolling. I always enjoy that song, and it's it's back to 20s mania again, and another test transmission. Last week we had the very enjoyable indulgence of having EO in with us with her selection, and I hope we can bring her back and others in to create some variety on these programs. Anyhow, it's a bit of a ad hoc week, to be honest. There's been a lot of changes here, some of them for the better, a lot of things that are sort of a bit dishevelled and haven't found their place yet, including the audio processing. So if anyone would like to give me a report at some stage, I'd be interested. I've been trying to listen off the SDRs, but there's been a lot of quite significant changes here, and I put in another auxiliary mixer, which is working quite well. It was a little Soundcraft mixer, gives me an extra 10 channels, and it fits in snugly underneath the RME desk here. That's all very good. It had a burnt-out power supply, so but that was quite straightforward to fix. Just had to reinstall a bit of circuit board and put in a new MOSFET and some capacitors and realign things a bit. But and that's been good because it gives me some more facility here. But in the process, I had to redo all of the audio processing. So now it sounds a little bit distorted to my ears on the mod monitor, and I'm not entirely reconciled to how that's occurring at this stage. The transmitter seems to be significantly down in power, and the grid current is way down. So I'm not sure what's happening there. And I tried retuning the antenna because there's been quite a bit of activity in the front yard and moving things around. So that was another part of the arrangement this week. But slowly but surely we'll get things back into check. So wondering how I'm being heard or not being heard or what's going on. Would value any comments. I do have another computer in the shack, which is quite useful. It's handy to have a touchscreen computer to use with the audio material, and I'm using the main computer to sort of monitor myself off SDRs and so on. And also, there's the prospect of using using voice over IP, so that may hold some prospect for future missions as well. There's been some really interesting developments in that arena this week. Oh, this does sound distorted. I might have to make a few more changes on the fly, I think. All right, well, we'll just keep the music going, and of course it's modulated test material. It's not entertainment in any guise. But what I might do this time is travel over to one of the turntables and put some live 78s to air. That wasn't supposed to happen. Now, that was supposed to be the ident, but it was actually the second track on our theme track, so I'll just do this sort of gracefully. I'll just fade that out. Can I do that behind the computer screen? Yes. And we'll just switch over the CD. There's a CD of Stings here I made up some time ago, which gives me time to pirouette over to the turntables. God, it's hot in here. All right, well, I don't know. I think it's a Du Bois Summers record on the table. I'll pick one off the shelf, and we'll see what prospect that holds. So let's have a listen, see if this ident's queued up. No, still thinking. It's a bit slow now, the CD player. It's an old Moran's. And here we go, we're on cue again, and then maybe not. See, it has to have a think. It's sort of long in the tooth, and I don't know if it's going to do anything we expect it to do. So we might have to have some dead air. All right, on we go.
This is VK3SL, testing on 160 metres, 2 metres, and the broadwave stream.
On a fence, all by yourself in the moonlight. There ain't no thrill by the watermill, all by yourself in the moonlight. There ain't no fun sitting beneath the trees, giving yourself a hug, giving yourself a squeeze. Not so far, sitting on the grass, all by yourself in the moonlight. yourself in the moonlight. There ain't no thrill by the watermill, all by yourself in the moonlight. There ain't no fun sitting beneath the trees, giving yourself a hug, giving yourself a squeeze. Love's so far, sitting on the grass, all by yourself in the moonlight.
Yeah, DeBroy Summers in the orchestra from the late 20s with All By Yourself in the Moonlight. That's off a real record. Yeah, I was twiddling with the compressor settings and trying to monitor things while that was going, and still not quite reconciled to the arrangements, but we'll certainly try and get there at some point. Try and reclaim the marvellous clarity and precision that we used to have. Hi. Well, look, we'll battle the elements out here and continue. Next on the list is if I can make this mouse wake up. It's a recording of the Savoy Hannah Band, and this will feature Mr. Goldberg, who we've talked about before. And we had a couple of features on Mr. Goldberg and his exploits and his amazing contributions to British dance band music, and noting the fact that he ended up in Australia. But he was very prolific, and he did record extensively with the Savoy Havana Band before he moved to Ambrose and Ray Noble and a multitude of other orchestras. So we'll have a listen to a recording from about 1926, and it's called When Do We Dance? It's the Savoy Hannah Band, and I'm VK3SL. was the Savoy Havana Band from 1926-27, and it was When Do We Dance? That's a Gershwin song, and it's off an old HMV. Yeah, we enjoy playing records from that decade. It's a bit of a 20s happening here in the booth, and yes, it's that sort of rampart nostalgia that is a bit of a life force for me. I tend to live in the past. Well, part of me does, but we all have lots of parts and we can inhabit plenty of spaces. One of the spaces has been underneath this console trying to get things working and get the mix minus working. Maybe later on there's a chance to test that out, but that's another episode. Yeah, but you know, it's all about testing and bringing things into service and the R&D aspect and learning as you go. It's that incessant curiosity that keeps us in the hobby, I suppose. All right, well, I just pulled a couple of random records off the shelf, and one of them is that Coles Embassy record recorded in Melbourne in 1929. Now, I can't recall if I've played this before. I might have, but it's the Green Mill Orchestra. That's right, the Green Mill Orchestra, which was more or less on the site of where the Art Centre is now. Joe Watson ran the Green Mill Orchestra in the 20s, and it was quite close to where Worth Circus was, and how they did record at the studios in Burke Street for Vocalion, and their records were released on the Coles Embassy label. But they're actually Vocalion records. Well, I've got one here. It's pretty worn. It features Jack O'Hagan as the vocalist, and yeah, a bit of local content. So we'll give that one a bit of a burl. So let's see what happens next.
This is VK3SL, testing on 160 metres, 2 metres, and the Broadwave streaming service.
Well, that looks like it's not even going to work. That is just noise, isn't it? Well, that's exciting, isn't it? Well, maybe we'll just have to swap turntables. Wow, that's bad as it can be. Maybe there's hum in the system, gremlin in the system, Mr. Cunningham in the system. All right, well, let's have a change of arrangement here. Oh, that's why I had the wrong fader. This is the problem. See, I've got this new screen and it obscures some of the faders, so I'm reaching behind. It's pretty convoluted, to be honest. All right, look, let's give that another go. So just backtrack, just rewind your mind, pretend none of this happened the last few minutes. That was just sort of an incidental bit of nothingness, and we'll hear the idea again, and then we'll very seamlessly and slickly morph into some radio nostalgia from Melbourne.
This is VK3SL. Test transmission.
Your you're the captain and crew. You will always be my necessity. I'd be lost without you.
Joe Watson and the Green Mill Orchestra from 1929, and You're the Cream in My Coffee, a local record, and one very known to our local correspondent, Mr. L, who is listening. And thank you, Chris, for that really illuminating email. Chris just gave me a potted history of Mr. Flippin and his exploits, a very long career. We might recall that the first record I played was Babyface. And yes, the artist Jay Flippin was had a very distinguished career, and in fact, he ended up in TV and had a strong presence in vaudeville, and indeed did have was involved with making Vodafone films. So yeah, thank you for that, Chris. Much appreciated, and all noted. I noted everything in your email there. So thank you for that, and look forward to catching up with you very soon. Okay, well, we'll just keep this rolling, I think. And what do we have next? Yes, something from the Prozoot archive. He's been continued to put recordings up online, and the latest is an OK record from 1929. It's the where's Smith Ballou and his orchestra with Lady Luck, I think it is. Yes, it looks like that's the case. So we'll give this a whirl and continue our 20s train. VK3SL.
from Broadway, but the stars above remain. 'Cause you can't take away the things that were made for love. Radio may give us pretty music, but the birds sing just the same. 'Cause you can't take away the things that were made for love. I know that butterflies and babbling brooks, the flowers and trees will live on in this world when we're just memories. till the end of time you'll find those lovers 'neath the moon in Lover's Lane. 'Cause you can't take away the things that were made for love.
Yeah, Smith Ballou and the well, he's going to continue. Well, there's no stopping Mr. Ballou. He's on a roll there. This is the new thing. We have an aggregate of recordings here with Mr. Prozut. He tends to sort of put together about 5 or 6 recordings and puts them all into one glorified big file, which is great for sort of general listening, but I have to have my wits about me and find the fader if I'm going to identify them or isolate them for this purpose. But anyhow, that was a bit of fun hearing Mr. Prozut and his recordings. Now, there was another one that sort of struck me this week. Now, if I can find it. Now, it popped up this afternoon. I try and keep track of recent uploads from about 5 or 6 20s enthusiasts. Very rare to find people who don't over-process recordings. That's the challenge. So there are about 5 or 6 who are regularly putting things up online, and either raw recordings or with very minimal processing. Now, there's one that jumped out at me today, and I thought it was amazing. Now, if I can find it here, going through my history list here, to see if it's there. It might be this one of Phil Baxter and his orchestra. I think this is it. So, from 1929. And this is a recording that features the piano accordion quite prominently. And it sounds fantastic as a rhythm instrument, and you don't sort of hear it much once the swing era sort of came about. Piano accordions were sort of relegated to the back desks, and then he eventually expunged altogether. This wasn't cool enough for the jazz idiom, but we'll have a listen to Phil Baxter, and I think this is the one. I might be wrong, but we'll have a listen and see. Have a listen to the piano accordion. I was pretty taken by it, if that is the case. Here we go. I Ain't Got No Gal Now. This is Phil Baxter and his orchestra from 1929, and I'm VK3SL testing.
It used to be in days of yore, I had mama by the score. But look now, I'm all alone. Say once I was a dancing crazy, but now I step out once a week. Maybe the girls say that I'm cold, that I'm ugly and growing old. I guess that's why I ain't got no gal now.
Now, I think that record was fantastic. It had a wonderful feel about it. It's sort of, fairly grassroots-ish, I think. Phil Baxter and his orchestra. And interesting to read about Mr. Baxter. He retired from music shortly after that time. He had a strong presence in Kansas City for a short while in the 20s. And then he had a rheumatic disease which sort of ended his career, but he lived well into the 1970s, and says he and his wife had a cleaning business later on. Well, it's sort of a bit of a step down from this sort of creative pursuit. When you hear that music, it's wonderful. Great energy and drive, and really individual voice. I like that recording. It says here also that Mr. Baxter accompanied Paul Whiteman during the First World War. Whiteman played the violin and he played the piano, and they entertained the troops during the First World War. Well, there's an interesting connection. So, yeah, that was a interesting record that I didn't know anything about until this afternoon. So, Mr. Baxter, Phil Baxter and his orchestra. Yeah, all right. Well, let's see what's next. We have now this is something a bit interesting, something I hadn't seen before as well. It's good to discover lots of new things. So when you think you know, this is as much there is to know about certain recording artists and their output, suddenly new things materialise, and there's a film of the Boswell sisters, which I'd never seen, never even knew existed, has surfaced, and it's a recording of them performing when it's sleepy time down south. So we'll listen to that, and I'll actually watch it while we're listening. And beautiful song, and everyone knows who listens to this test transmission knows what I think of the Boswell sisters. They are magic, amazing artists, and I think this is no exception. VK3SL.
La those banjos ringing, donkeys are singing, they dance till break of day. Oh, dear old Southland with her dreamy song, take me there where I belong. Oh, I'd love to be in Mammy's arms when it's sleepy time down south. Pale moon shining on the fields below, donkeys crooning soft and low. You needn't tell me, honey, 'cause I know it's sleepy time down south. Soft winds blowing through the pinewood trees, folks down there live a life of ease. When old Mammy falls upon her knees, it's sleepy time down south. Steamboats on the river come and a going, splashing the night away. Oh, hear the banjos ringing, donkeys are singing, they dance to break of day. Dear old Southland with a dreamy song, take me there, that's where I belong. How I'd love to be in Mammy's arms when it's sleepy time down south.
Well, that was something else. Amazing to see them, and a beautiful, clear film of the Boswell sisters in 1932. And it evidently featured Eddie Lang. There's no doubt about that. Those guitar breaks are Eddie Lang, and he died in 1932. Oh, here we go. It's going to jump ahead. These are on a roll. Yes, Eddie Lang. Amazing to see him. Oh, not so well. There's no film of him. He's actually in the background, but you can hear his guitar breaks and those beautiful, clear runs interspersed with the tune. And yeah, but look, I'm forever fascinated by the Boswell sisters. When I hear them, I just can't. For me, it just is a revelation how they synergize. I suppose that's the best word for them. But very good. Now, I've got a couple of people to say hi to. I caught up with Jeff Sylvester today. I was out in the, where was I? Altronics. I had to get some parts for this console, and been doing lots of repairs lately. And I bumped into Mr. Sylvester, and I believe he's listening. So, hi Jeff. It's nice to see you today. So, hope to catch up with you soon. And also, I had the wonderful occasion to catch up with Frank and his wife Kathy during the week this week. It was really great to see Frank and talk music and talk stuff. It was just a delightful afternoon. So, yes, I've got to do more visits. I think that's what's important. It's not easy to do, actually, but with the time constraints and things, but it worked out very well this week. So that was most excellent indeed. All right, well, we'll keep going. And, all right, I suppose we should move into the OTR segment. It's all getting a bit typecast. I'm going to have to sort of find a new formula soon. After last week's spontaneous missions with EO playing all of those amazing contemporary artists, I've got to find some different tacks, or at least bring some other people into the fold. So, yes, contemplating that. But anyhow, for the time being, we'll continue with what we've done. And because there's just a constant array of new material, interesting things and stuff that's related to the history of radio, well, sort of, in a indirect way. And there is an early episode of News Beats popped up on Mr. Hare's site. So we'll have a listen to this. This is from 1964. And it's off a tape. And we should play it before it disappears. Hopefully it won't. I admire Mr. Hare in his exploits. He is tirelessly keeps putting things up on YouTube. I just hope they remain there. Yeah. All right. So what do? I think I just Yeah, I think everything's right to go. So we'll have a listen to Newsbeat and sit back, have a little bit of radio nostalgia from the 1960s from 3UZ. This is VK3SL, test transmission on 160 metres, 2 metres, and also there's a streaming service if anyone wants to check that. Let's look up on my QRZ page and there's a link to it. It's streaming live, and of course there is ongoing streaming activity 24/7 now for people not to listen to. Anyhow, let's cut to the chase. VK3SL.
This is the Greater 3UZ in Melbourne, relaying to 3TR Gippsland and Radio RAAF Malaya. The time, 9:30. Newsbeat, presented by
Castrol, the masterpiece in oils.
Old oil clogged with dirt causes engine wear and costly damage. Change oil regularly. Use fresh, clean Castrol. Castrol keeps your engine in good shape and reduces repair bills. Your car maker recommends Castrol, and he should know what's best. Always ask for the properly balanced super-grade oil, fresh, clean Castrol.
When your car needs lubrication, ask for Castrol by name. Give your car exhilaration, ask for Castrol by name. It's the fresh, clean oil that gives long life to engines. Castrol, the masterpiece in oils.
And now here is John Ford on the Newsbeat.
Good morning. A frantic night on the Newsbeat with reports on accidents, fatalities, a near riot at Festival Hall, brawls, and a serious assault. The night starts with the return to town of 3UZ newsmen after their sensational smash off Dromana in a light plane on shark spotting duty.
Back in the city, we have Neil Thompson, who has just arrived from Rosebud, I think, Neil.
That was right, John. Yes, Rosebud.
Well, now, we've heard your version of this earlier in 3UZ news broadcasts today. I wonder, in talking to you now, if we can find out just a little more of what happened. Firstly, what were you doing at the time that the accident occurred?
We sighted up this shark, John, a pretty big one, about a 14-footer just near Dromana, and we started circling. This was our normal procedure, of course. Small craft had come in to help us chase the shark out to deeper water. And I was watching the shark pretty intently as we were circling, of course. Well, all of a sudden, I don't know quite when I became aware of this, but I was aware of a sudden loss in height, and it seemed very sudden, too. And then I saw the water rushing up at us. And the pilot, by this time, who was fighting really hard to control his aircraft, had almost pulled it out and had it almost in an attitude of landing. And I thought, well, we're going to make it. In those last couple of seconds, I knew we weren't. None of us had said a word. There wasn't a sound in the cabin of the aircraft from any one of us. Then suddenly we hit.
So it stalled, then belly down.
It did just this. It did just this.
If you had gone in nose first, you'd have been in a lot more trouble.
Had we gone in nose first, I doubt very much whether any one of us would have survived this. And I think because of the attitude of the aircraft and because of our seat belts, I'd like to emphasize this one. All of us have lived through this one. We've all got rather tender tummies, but frankly, we're quite content to settle for that.
Did she attempt to sink straight away, or did it seem to float on its wings for a while?
It stayed perhaps on its wings, but the entire cabin, unfortunately, was underwater, and it filled almost immediately.
So the doors, then, which I heard you say in an earlier broadcast jammed, must have been very hard to open.
They were. One was jammed completely. We couldn't budge it at all. I got both feet against my door on my side, the left-hand side, and that was the only way that I could kick this door free, by sheer force of 2 feet.
And then I think I heard you say that Richard Earle, one of our newsreaders at 3UZ who was with you at the time, was trapped in and you had to pull him out.
I tried to grab Dick and drag him with me, but lost the grip. But somehow, when I came up for air, so did he. I don't know how he came out through a hole through the front of the aircraft, as far as I can see, John.
And what about the pilot and his friend, who I understand is a reverend gentleman?
The pilot surfaced almost at the same time. I was on the wing of the aircraft trying to reach for the others, and I said, "Where's the other chap?" And I threw my shoes into a boat intending to dive in. By the time I did, the pilot, who was already injured, had gone back underwater and had pulled the man from the cabin and had surfaced with him.
And he was fairly seriously injured, this passenger?
He was quite seriously injured, John, with quite a deep head wound.
And then you all went into the Rosebud Hospital straight away?
Well, 2 launches came to help us. One launch took the 2 most injured, the pilot and this reverend gentleman, off to the Rosebud Division of the Peninsula Hospital. And Richard Earle of 3UZ and myself, we came in near the Dromana Pier and went to the police straight away.
At Prince Henry's Hospital, a Peninsula ambulance has just pulled in here with police escort, and I have the driver with me. Driver, I believe you brought up the pilot and the passenger, or one of the passengers from the Cessna aircraft which crashed today at Dromana.
That is correct, yes.
Where did you pick them up?
We took over from Frankston. We met the escort at the bridge, the Mile Bridge.
And then they were changed into your ambulance, or did you change drivers?
We didn't change at all. We continued with the patient.
Straight through here to Prince Henry's?
Straight through to Prince Henry's.
I noticed you had a police escort, and coming down St Kilda Road ahead of me, you weren't wasting any time. There was some degree of urgency, I gather.
Yes, it is urgent, but our speed was a moderate one.
The condition of the patients when you brought them in?
Very good, I think.
One was a spine, wasn't it?
One was a spine, and the other was head injuries.
So now they're safely installed at Prince Henry's Hospital?
Yes, they're in good hands.
Thank you very much, driver. And the senior in charge of the police escort, how far did you come with them, senior?
Oh, I picked them up at the Mount Eliza and then brought them right through the Prince Henry Hospitals.
Yes, your siren was going at a good bat down St Kilda Road.
Yes.
Did you have much trouble with traffic?
No, it was absolutely perfect. The average motorist is to be complimented. He assisted us greatly all the way through. Coming up the highway from Frankston, they're just like a ship. They just opened up all the way for us.
I'm very pleased to hear it. We did broadcast it over 3UZ in the hope that people listening in their cars would open up for you.
Yes, well, there was no high-speed escort. It was just a nice, steady escort in relation to the persons injured. The injuries warranted a steady speed, and honestly, well, we can't say enough for the motorists at the moment. They're very good.
Also in the aircraft was 3UZ's Richard Earle. Richard, did you see this accident coming?
Oh, for a very few seconds, John. It was only a flash sort of thing. It's still very, very foggy in my memory. I can see the water coming up, and that was it. A tremendous noise and water all over the place inside the aircraft. And
Neil tells me you had some difficulty getting out.
I had a little bit of difficulty. The back seat of that particular Cessna is not readily acceptable or accessible to the door. And with all the water and sand and seaweed inside the plane, it was very difficult to find a door or any opening at all. But luckily, just by feeling around with your eyes half open, you can find something if you're in a hurry.
I think most of 3UZ's listeners know that you're a Canadian, Richard, and you are also a licensed pilot in Canada, aren't you, but not in Australia?
That's true. I have a pilot's license in Canada, but it isn't validated here yet.
And this, I imagine, would be one of your worst flying experiences.
This has not been my best flight, I'll tell you that.
But you'll fly again for 3UZ Community
certainly.
Services, no doubt?
Sure, I'll do it tomorrow.
The pilot of the plane is Dennis Berry, aged 22, now in a satisfactory condition in Prince Henry's Hospital with back and head injuries. Pastor Richard Duckett, 47, of Carlton, is now reported in a critical condition with head and internal injuries. Thompson was uninjured, and Earle was allowed to go home after treatment for lacerations and bruises. In the city, the Newsbeat round kicks off with a familiar incident in a familiar place.
Outside the Royal Hotel, Gertrude Street, Fitzroy, an ambulance has been sent for here, and a man apparently quite badly injured, sitting down on a step here, blood pouring from him. Police already on the scene here, too. There's been a brawl constable here, hasn't there?
That's right.
Yeah. Fairly traditional corner, I think, isn't it, this one? Most Saturdays?
Yeah.
Anybody else injured, or just the one fellow?
Just the one bloke. You don't know, head with a chair, you know.
With a chair, was he? 3UZ St John ambulance man having a look at him at the moment. How is he, Graham?
Not too bad, John, but he's got a rather nasty laceration there.
It's quite a bad one on the head.
Just trying to arrest the bleeding.
Civil ambulance will go back to St Vincent's Hospital. He's not too bad, I don't think, driver, is he?
Not too bad, John. No, he's just got
quite a nasty scalp, though.
Gash to the head, that's all.
Well, a chair can do a lot of damage.
Also.
Somebody had a fight.
Yeah, apparently there was a fight in the hotel there.
Over some woman or something.
Over a woman, was it? Oh, you didn't see it?
No, I was down the building, down the next hotel.
Were you?
But I heard about it. But, I think, I don't know, I wouldn't have a clue, but somebody had a fight over one woman. And somebody...
well, he got a nasty hit on the head out of it anyway.
Oh, did he?
Oh, my word,
What with
yes. With a chair, I believe.
What? Oh,
yeah, they've taken him off to hospital now. You didn't see it, did you?
He's got a tape recording going, remember?
Oh, no. Not really.
Well, we're just trying to find out what happened here, that was all. I thought you might have known.
Oh, did it? Was you badly hurt?
Not too badly, dear, I don't think, no. Not too badly. You didn't see it, did you?
No, I didn't see it. I just missed it. I'd like to see it anyway.
You'd like to see it?
I think
for sure.
The accident run starts off with a lucky escape for a family.
Queens Road and Lawn Street, almost onto Albert Park Lake, and there's a car here. Looks as if it's probably rolled over. It's a Mini Minor, very badly damaged in the side, and quite a crowd of people around.
I was here play with my children, and I heard that
big push, and just to see and the car make one
turnover.
One turnover. And everybody was inside. 2 young boys, just small children.
Really? And they're all right?
Yeah, everyone all right. Really? 2 young and 1 woman has a baby.
Did you rush over and try and help them out?
Yeah, many people come here and take off the people and they're inside the big halls.
They went in an ambulance?
The ambulance is here now.
I see.
Yeah, here.
Yet nobody's badly hurt?
Nobody badly hurt, only the driver here, just here.
Cut on the hand?
Yeah. What very lucky, very lucky.
These 2 men with the present.
Oh, were they in the car?
Yes.
In this little one?
Yes. Oh. These are
carrying a load of Christmas presents.
Yes.
Excuse me, I see you with your load of Christmas presents. I hear you were in that mini miner.
No, not me, friend. They're over in the hotel.
Are they all right?
Yes, the lady is. She's pregnant, but she's all right.
Oh, that's
she's
good.
She's a bit shaken up, you know.
And a couple of kiddies too, I hear.
Yeah, there's 2 kiddies and the lady, but she's quite all right. They were very lucky.
What hit them?
Oh, a fella came belting out of that crossroad there and
nearly another.
And another one, and give them the business, and poor devils were going out to this Christmas thing, you know.
To a Christmas party.
Terrible. That's
it's a shame, isn't it?
It is. No, that's terrible. Why these people don't slow down or something, I don't know.
I know. But still, the main thing is nobody's seriously hurt.
No, see, they're a bit shaken up, but they're pretty good. Yeah. They're pretty lucky.
And you're looking after all the Christmas presents?
Oh, we're just putting them back in for them.
Are you? That's very nice of you.
But it's Christmas, and I hope everyone slows down a bit.
And this car came out of the side street, I gather?
He came out, I don't know the street. The Morris Minor was right across the intersection. It hit him in the middle of the Morris Minor at the front of the Holden and rolled him.
Oh, dear.
From my point of view, I thought, first of all, I thought Holden was just edging up to the stop, you know, to let him go through, but he didn't seem to stop and he hit him. It's unavoidable. Just on the other side of the intersection.
Nobody hurt in the Holden?
No, it was just a touch.
You were the driver of the Holden, sir, I believe.
Oh, yeah?
You didn't see them coming across or something?
Oh, I did not.
They were just there before you realised it?
I don't want to say nothing about it.
You don't want to?
Nothing.
You're not hurt, though, are you?
No.
Any passengers with you?
Yes.
Not hurt?
No.
Well, that's a jolly good thing. And the other people are all right, too, I hear.
I hope.
Bad luck at Christmas
Ford,
time.
yes.
Well, you know you're on Newsbeat, then.
Oh, I do. Oh, no, nothing about it.
M&S Towing have hooked up the Holden. It's not too bad. Repairable, isn't it?
Yes, John, that's quite repairable.
Quite a new one, too.
Yes, it's one of the latest ones. The Morris will be a write-off.
Yes, bad luck for the people, wasn't it?
Seen its last days. Apparently they've been going out to deliver their Christmas presents, and his wife is pregnant too, John.
Well, it's Christmas without good cheer for those poor people.
Yes, it is, John. Very bad luck indeed.
At West Melbourne, the police are called in force to control a crowd which a year ago wouldn't have walked across the road to see the grunt and groaners wrestle.
Standing out the road, now you can't get in unless you have tickets. Now, clear the roadway, thank you. I'm going off the road. Clear the roadway, thank you. Now, keep right off the roadway. There are no tickets left, so keep right off the roadway.
That voice you can hear is from a police courtesy car right outside the stadium, where apparently it's been on for young and old here, with 1,000 people and more congregated around the doors trying to get in. What's been going on here, Sonny?
Oh, there's no seats left, and everybody's just been keeping at the window all the time.
What, have they been fighting?
Oh, I think there was a brawl down there before.
Was there?
Yes.
But I think the police are getting rid of everybody now, so there won't be any more trouble. Was there much of a fight?
Oh, I don't think so, but I saw about a few people getting put in the police car down there.
It is no good waiting around outside. There are no seats available. There are definitely no seats available for the wrestling tonight.
And that's the speaker right outside the stadium now. You can hear it still in the background. And police moving people off the roadway too. Having a problem, senior, tonight?
Just a few.
Anybody arrested from all this?
There's 3 been arrested.
Was there much of a fight on?
No fight, just idiots that climbed up on top of women and children.
Trying to push their way in?
Climb over the top of them.
Good heavens.
Come on your way home, please. Come on. No more left.
Well, the crowd is starting to clear a bit now, with quite a lot of police assistance here too. I'd say there'd be at least a dozen police on the scene here, and a good solid guard on the gate too, to see no one gets in. You've had your problems on the gate.
We definitely have.
Were they trying to force the gate against you?
We're trying to push everywhere.
Were they?
Everywhere.
Well, the ushers...
I would say that there would be many outside is what there would be inside.
Were there? Well, the stadium ushers are renowned for being pretty healthy characters. Was it too much for you to hold your own tonight?
Oh, no. Never.
You could manage.
Excuse me, listen, there's two people out here that booked from Geelong through the Melbourne Sports Depot. They've booked on the stage.
Thank you.
How do they go back getting their ticket?
Number 2.
Somebody's got a ticket. You got yours, all right?
Yeah.
Wrong door.
Inside the stadium, the grunt and groaners are really at it. And there he went. Right into the rope post. It looks like a ball coming up too, I would think. Do you have your problems getting in tonight? No. Who are they?
Louis.
They Greek?
No, Italian.
Both of them? Both of them?
Yeah, no. Oh, I don't know what about another one.
You don't care as long as it's a good fight.
Okay, Louis is an Italian, it's all right.
Here's Jack Little, quite a night, Jack.
Well, this is the most sensational thing that has ever happened in the 12 years that I have been in Australia, John, because Jim Barnett has brought a new era of wrestling to Australia, and this sensational crowd that you've seen outside, this is only the beginning, because the greatest wrestling I have ever seen in 33 years connected with the wrestling game.
So it's on again like it used to be in the 30s?
Yes, even better than ever before, and John, as all the wrestling fans know, for the first time in the history of Australia, a world's title changed hands here in Melbourne when Dominic DeNucci defeated Walter Killer Kowalski, and DeNucci is the most popular champion and popular wrestler ever to come to Australia.
Well, I've never seen the stadium anything like this, have you?
It's unbelievable, John.
Do you come to the wrestling often?
Quite often, yes, John.
Best you've ever seen it?
Fantastic, my word.
While the crowds at the wrestling yell for blood, our roads are providing plenty of it.
At the Alfred Hospital, a civil ambulance has just pulled in here, and I believe, driver, you've attended the scene of what has now proved to be a fatal accident in Brighton, isn't it?
That's correct.
What part of Brighton?
I think they call it the Esplanade.
And was it pedestrian?
Pedestrian hit by a car, yeah.
When you arrived there, was the man, in your opinion, dead instantly?
Well, not in my opinion, he wasn't. No, he died on the way into the Alfred.
And death has now been certified here at the Alfred Hospital?
Yes.
Was he an elderly fellow?
I reckon about 60.
And on his own at the time, walking across the road?
I believe so, yes.
Here is the police report. A motor car with a New South Wales registration, driven by a 29-year-old man from Moorabbin, struck a pedestrian, Charles Battersley, 79 years, of 144 the Esplanade, Brighton. Battersley was dead on arrival at the Alfred Hospital. Life pronounced extinct by Dr. Williamson. Relatives were present. The superintendent and the coroner have been notified. The driver of the car was arrested and charged with driving under the influence and dangerous driving. Just a few moments later at the Alfred Hospital, and now a Peninsula Dandenong ambulance has pulled in here. And what have you come from, driver?
From Dandenong, Hammond Road.
Where there has been another fatality?
I do believe so.
When you arrived there, what was the scene that greeted you?
First thing I saw was a Holden up against the lamppost. That's all I really took much notice of. I didn't see the other car or anything.
Oh, there were two cars involved.
I should imagine. I didn't see it.
There was two cars involved. There was one girl appeared to be dead up against a barbed wire fence, and body strewn all over the road when we arrived.
How many have you brought into the hospital?
We brought three and...
Four. 3 stretchers and one sitter.
And one sitter, yes.
So there were 5 people really involved in the accident then, and only the one fatality.
No, there could be 2, I think.
Oh, so somebody's fairly critical amongst those you brought in then?
Yes, we believe so. The doctor says that one is not too good.
All fairly young people?
Yes, all teenagers, what they do.
All teenagers. Thank you very much, drivers.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Here is the police report.
A motor car driven by Robin Crick, about 19, of 5 Oban Court, Frankston South, driving in Hammond Road, Dandenong, was struck by a car driven by Brian Ilbery of 2 Magnolia Street, Doveton. Killed Lynette Kane, 19 years, of 95 Hammond Road, Dandenong, June Towan, 22 years, of Albert Street, Dandenong, and injured Crick to the Alfred Hospital with head injuries, Ilbery to the Alfred with head and internal injuries, Rosemary Smith, 49 Turata Drive, Doveton, head and leg injuries to the Alfred Hospital. Kane was killed instantly and conveyed to the Dandenong mortuary. Towan was dead on arrival at the Alfred Hospital, the body conveyed to the city mortuary. Relatives have been notified. The most vicious and cowardly assault for a long time is made soon after.
Outside 147 Edward Street in Brunswick, a woman lying on the footpath here, police in attendance. The result of an accident or what?
No, not just drop down.
She just fell down?
Yeah, I don't know if she fell down, maybe somebody else. We don't know.
There's quite a bit of blood around, isn't there? As if she's been hurt in some way.
Oh, yeah, might be. We don't know.
Are you a friend of this lady's?
Yes, I know her.
You know her?
Yes.
And what's happened to her?
You know, she come very drunk. Come another one man. I be stop a bed, I sick, you know. Oh, look me.
You've been sick in bed?
Yes, I sick in bed. They come. And the man told, please go home. She not wanted.
She said to him, please go home.
Now, he say, please go. Go. I give for you taxi. She say, I not want a taxi. I have fallen again here.
She fell?
Yeah, she self, not somebody.
Only herself? She wasn't pushed?
No.
And no car hit her?
No, nothing at all.
Civil ambulance will go back to probably the Royal Melbourne from here, driver?
Yes, Royal Melbourne.
How is the lady?
Oh, only for a laceration to the head, quite all right.
She'll be all right. And I think you'd like to borrow our St John ambulance man for a while, would you?
If possible.
All right, we'll go back with you and we'll pick him up at Royal Melbourne. Police trying to interview a few people over here at the moment now.
Bag over sort of a bag over his shoulder, and what was in the bag I don't know, and he was blind drunk.
Was there any sort of a fight, madam, or anything like that?
Eh?
Any sort of a fight or any blows struck?
No, the poor woman was lying on the pavement. There couldn't be any fight because he was kicking her and hitting her.
Oh, he was?
Oh, I saw him.
Well, I was talking to that lady in the brown coat over there. She said the lady just fell and hit her head on the gutter, but you saw her being attacked.
I saw her being attacked.
And the man, what did he do after the attack?
Well, he hit her and kicked her and kicked her and hit her and kicked her, and then she couldn't move, and he put the bag was over his shoulder, and he just swore, and I sang out to him. I said, "What are you doing to that woman?" And he sang, and he went up there and went up right up there.
Was he a young man?
Oh no, he was a man about 40 to 50.
Because she is quite an elderly lady, the one who's been attacked.
Is she, poor thing?
Police on the scene here in a divisional wagon. And are you taking this as an assault, Constable, or are you still investigating to find out what really happened?
Well, at the moment, it will be investigated. We think it is an assault, and we'll be getting more particulars. And in fact, there is a witness who saw the alleged offence.
Yes, I've spoken to her.
Yes, well, we'll be giving it to the Brunswick CIB.
And having a look for the man she described.
Well, we haven't got much of a description, but we'll have to...
Enough to start, anyway.
Enough to start.
Thank you very much, Constable. And then, news of a country fatality. Here is the police report. A car driven by Graham Dinney, 18 years, of Devonish, left the Benalla-Yarrawonga road and struck a tree 19 miles from Benalla. Dinney was dead on arrival at Benalla Base Hospital. Relatives have been notified, the body conveyed to the mortuary, the superintendent and coroner notified. For police and ambulance, it's a busy night, and the stacks pile up with almost monotonous regularity. Berkeley Street and Summerhall Street in Footscray. Quite a lot of activity here with police on the scene and two badly damaged cars. What's the story on this?
Oh, I wouldn't know. All I know is one stolen. This one here is stolen.
Stolen?
Yeah, apparently. So I just heard some chap chased him up the road.
The police are trying to find out now who chased him up the road.
And he's shot through, of course. He's gone.
Yeah, they're both gone. One went to hospital, I believe.
There were two of them in it?
Yeah, 2 cars. The other one's up there on the back of Modern, and the other one's both allocations. One to Rising Sun and one to Modern.
Anyone badly hurt in that ambulance I saw going past?
Could be. I wouldn't know. I mean, there's a fair bit of damage on the steering here of this one.
I believe there was a chap walking across the road. If these cars had to come together, we would have got jammed between the two of them, as far as we know.
Yeah.
But this chap apparently has gone. There's been no word of it at all, and we don't know anything as far as that goes.
Were you close by when the accident occurred?
I suppose about 15 to 20 yards up.
So you heard it well and truly?
Yeah.
You weren't looking at the time, I suppose?
No, we were walking up and bang.
Yeah. Did you hear them travelling pretty hard before they hit one of the cars?
Yeah.
Well, now, somebody told me that one fellow, and perhaps 2 out of this car that may be stolen, leapt out of it and disappeared.
I would say 3.
3?
Yeah.
Did you see them running up the street?
Yeah, run like hell.
Were they? You saw them too?
Going like a bad hell.
Yeah. Did anyone chase after them?
One fellow said, stop them fellows, and no one could stop them.
They were going too hard.
Yeah. It's like a tin air.
Young blokes?
Well, I would say it wouldn't be more than 19.
20 the most. 20 the most.
So none of the people out of the car that's reported stolen were hurt?
No.
Yeah, they took 2 to the hospital.
Yes, but
the stolen car, no.
Yeah, and the 2 who were hurt, bad?
No,
I don't think so. They just walked into the ambulance and they took them over.
They
looked them over and they walked them into the ambulance and took them over.
Well, it's probably the car that may have been stolen that was speeding a bit, do you think?
I say it was not speeding a bit, it was speeding.
It was speeding?
Yeah.
And it's always the innocent party who gets hurt, isn't
That's
it?
right. Yeah, definitely.
A bad luck Christmas for them.
Yeah.
More definitely.
Very bad.
Very bad, yeah.
Did you see enough of these people to give police a description to start them off?
Oh, roughly.
Rough. Yeah.
Enough to give them a bit of a start.
Yeah, they give them a start, yeah.
Police on the scene here, and first I've just been talking to some witnesses who said they might have given you enough description to start you off on a search. Have you got enough?
Yes, well, we have a description and we have an idea where we might be able to find these fellows, so we're going to take off.
I hope you find them. Thanks,
Thank
first.
you.
Rising Sun have picked up both the jobs, boys, haven't you?
No, we got one. One job was allocated to
Yeah, we got the stolen car and the opposition got the other one.
Well, having a look at the stolen car, it was a heap to begin with, so I gather it won't be fixed.
No, it's no good anymore.
And the Morris Minor?
It'd be the same, possibly the same.
Early this morning, 2 more men lose their lives, and a third is in a critical condition in hospital when 2 cars pile up in Plenty Road, Bandura. And just after the Newsbeat round finishes at 6 a.m., yet another motorist is killed when his car hits a light pole in West Heidelberg. A total of 7 deaths for the night. To this moment, police have released no details of these last 2 accidents. And that was the night and the early morning in our city. Stand by for more highlights of the Newsbeat.
The longer you leave oil in your engine, the dirtier it gets. That can mean engine damage, expensive damage. The really safe way to guard your engine is to refill regularly with fresh, clean Castrol. Regular Castrol care keeps your engine clean and working smoothly, makes it last longer, too. And Castrol keeps oil and repair bills lower. Take care of your car. Look ahead. Keep your eye on repair costs. Use Castrol, the oil your car maker recommends. The properly balanced super-grade oil, fresh, clean Castrol.
Castrol, the masterpiece in oils.
Newsbeat News of the Week. Australian minesweeper HMAS Teal sees action in Indonesian waters.
The radar operator picked up 2 small vessels on his screen. Suddenly, the Teal was under fire, and Lieutenant Murray, the ship's Australian commander, had given the order to return fire. In a few hectic minutes, the Teal had brought one boat alongside, and the other had fled back into Indonesian waters.
The Premier, Mr. Bolte, officially opens the Princess Gate project.
This is a most intricate operation. The engineering and technical skills needed to bring about a changeover in sinking platforms, lowering tracks, at the same time not interfering with your very excellent service, Mr. Brownbill, and at the same time transforming an area that, to say the least, has always been an eyesore.
And then the Premier himself drives a train along the new section of line at the platform.
Now, keep going. Now. There you are.
Very well done.
Excellent.
Yes.
Now, degrees up.
A 1918 Rolls-Royce is auctioned at Narib in Kooyong Road, and well-known racing driver Mr. Reg Hunt is very interested.
What do you think it'll bring? Round figures. Oh, if the keen man is here, it'll bring 3 thou. 3 thou? But if there were 2 keen men, it could go up to 5.
The bidding quickly rose beyond £2,000.
2,200. Finished, done, finished. 300. 2,300. 2,300 pounds. Done at 2,300 pounds. I'll offer it done at 2,300. Finished, done. 2,300. Please.
The new owner figured he got a bargain.
You figure you got a bargain? 3 years that is.
Yes, I do.
What do you think you might have to pay for it?
About 2.5.
Oh, well, you went further.
I have a deposit,
Yes,
please?
certainly.
Mr. Jock Sturrock announces the plans of a Melbourne syndicate to contend the America's Cup.
This syndicate has already commissioned the designer to go ahead. That was from our first meeting, which was a week ago, first public meeting. And he went back to Sydney that night and commenced on his designs, and the boat will be commenced building the end of November, October of 1965, and should be finished by September, October of 1966.
This morning's headlines: Congolese rebels armed with Russian and Communist Chinese automatic weapons are counterattacking fiercely around 2 provincial capitals in the northeastern Congo. Radio messages reaching Leopoldville say a handful of central government troops are clinging to precarious positions at Polis, the capital of Ulele province. 19 children have perished in a tragic series of home fires around the United States. 6 children aged between 3 and 14 died in flames at their home in the northeastern Detroit suburb of Warren. At Kingston, North Carolina, 5 children aged between 6 months and 9 years burnt to death in a farmhouse. 5 children aged from 7 to 16 died in a fire at their home near Marked Tree, Arkansas. 3 children perished when flames destroyed their home at Seattle, Washington. Parliamentary leaders in New South Wales believe allegations made against a prominent Labour MP by a Parliament House typist will greatly embarrass the Labour Party and the New South Wales Labour government. Police are believed to be investigating the allegations, and the investigations are expected to have far-reaching repercussions. An iron ore deal worth more than £270 million, believed to be the biggest raw material purchase ever made by Japan and the largest sale made by Australia, was announced in London yesterday. Hammersley Iron has received agreement from the 10 steel mills of Japan to purchase 65.5 million tons of iron ore. A 73-year-old man was swept out to sea and drowned near South Curl Curl Beach, New South Wales, late yesterday. The man, whose name has not been released, was fishing from rocks with his son at the time. Sport. The visiting Pakistan team gave Adelaide cricket fans a batting bonanza at the Adelaide Oval yesterday. Pakistan resumed at none for 25, and at the close of play was 6 for 421. Young opener Ilyas made a fine 154, and captain Hanif was 80 not out at stumps.
Well, there we have it. That's Newsbeat through UZ from the 20th of December 1964. Well, I'm gobsmacked. I've never heard a full episode of Newsbeat. It's a legendary program, and I've heard snippets before, but it is incredibly gratuitous and voyeuristic. I don't think I've ever heard anything like it. It's a very different culture in that generation, that time. I can't imagine people having that sort of, grotesque curiosity. But exported for everything it was worth. It was incredible. So apparently the episodes are fairly rare. There's not many extant, and that was interesting to hear. So, thanks to the Mr. Hare's archive. Wow, it's pretty sort of bleak, to say the least. Really bleak. I don't know what to follow that with now. It's sort of set a rather ominous tone, but it's so frank, so matter of fact and frank, and the most terrible things are happening, and people's lives are being wrecked, and heaps of people are dying. It makes you realise that it was possibly, I don't know, maybe there was more civil unrest back in the 60s. It's staggering stuff. Well, I'll be interested to find any other episodes. It's a snapshot of Middle Australia in the 60s. Amazing. Well, I did catch up with Frank this week, and it was good to have a chat. One of the conversation points was Alma Moody, and Frank's partner Kathy is related to Alma Moody. She was a very great violinist in the first 3 decades of the 20th century, and she had a very tragic end. She got caught up in the whole sort of the devastation and the civil unrest in World War II, and she married someone who a well-respected surgeon, I think, or a doctor, and he ended up being a Nazi, and she had nowhere to go, and she ended up taking her life. Very sad ending, but for a great artist. But the most astonishing thing about Alma Moody is that she was sort of the darling of all of the a number of composers and performers. She was held in the highest regard. She was born in Mount Morgan in Australia and went over to Britain just after the First World War, I think, and just had this meteoric career. Incredible. It's one of those great untold Australian stories. But the thing is, we don't have any recordings. There's nothing to our knowledge extant of Alma Moody. She studied with Carl Flesch. Carl Flesch was the eminent pedagogue of the 20s and 30s, a magnificent violinist, and he had a very special spot for Alma Moody, and in his biography he saw her as being his favourite student. He had a very special connection with her, and but I suppose the closest we can to playing an Alma Moody recording is to hear the music of Carl Flesch himself. This is a recording made in 1928, about the time when Alma Moody was probably finishing her studies with Carl Flesch, but you'll hear his musical his musical vision. Beautiful player in the old school, and I just think this is just wonderful. So I'm trying to just restrain some of my waxing lyrical, but I do think this is amazing. Can't help myself. Carl Flesch with an aria from Pugliese by Lotti, and this is his own arrangement on an Edison diamond disc, put up on YouTube by John Hanna on his site Vintage Sounds. I'm VK3SL. the playing of Carl Flesch, recorded in 1928 on a Edison diamond disc. Very well captured. It's great to hear Mr. Flesch, and with such committed playing, it's beautiful in every way. It's amazing how players in that generation would treat a very small, trivial piece, or seemingly trivial piece, so respond with the same reverence and dignity that they'd approach a major work. There's something so sort of noble about those interpretations. There's not even the slightest attempt to trivialise the piece or to sort of to try and reduce it in any way. It's just such committed playing. And, I've listened to that a few times this week, and there's so much colour, so much interest, and the vibrato varies. All of the expressive techniques are just put into utter service of the music. It's beautiful. Yeah, so great to hear. There's a few others too of Carl Flesch. We played some the other week. Another artist who I hold in great esteem, who's been celebrated this week with another upload, and this is a very, very rare recording. I had no idea this existed. It's a Polydor from 1926, an early electric, with Gaspar Casado, who's probably my favourite cellist, or one of my favourite cellists. He's a player who fulfills the same characterisation of what I've just mentioned of Mr. Flesch. We hear the same noble spirit in Casado here in a little minuet by Boccherini, and again, just superlative playing. So I'll just do a return on this, and we'll have a listen on a Polydor put up by Vintage Sounds. I'm VK3SL, enjoying the beautiful performing of great string players of yore. Well, supposedly, did I fade out on that? I wonder why it's not working. Oh, do you know what I've done? Yeah, I'm using this new computer, and I've accidentally pushed the mute control there. So we'll just backspace there, and we'll have another listen. VK3SL. Yeah, we heard Gaspar Casado in 1926 on a Polydor record playing a Minuetto by Boccherini. And, God, that playing is beautiful. There's so much soul in that performance and freedom of spirit. It's incredible how artists, well, such as Casado, were sort of able to, I don't know, raise above the music in a way. And they're playing so fresh and so sort of open, and it sounds like they're making it up. Sounds like they're just inventing it on the spot. There's nothing laboured or there's nothing sort of contrived. It's just a beautiful, honest utterance, and just so innately expressive. Yeah, it's cello playing that completely bewilders me. What I'd give to be able to play. I know how hard it is to play, and I hear someone play with that level of freedom, and it just blows me away. Incredible, really. So, yeah, Mr. Casado, Gaspar Casado. Yeah, he's got an interesting, complex life, but that they're great recordings which I'd never heard before. I never heard his Polydors, and there's two of them put up this week. There's another track there as well, which I'll save up. All right, so what next is getting late? It's getting very late. I've actually got something on the turntable here, because I went through a box of Autophon Type A cartridges, and most of them have all seized up. They've all sort of stuffed. But there was one or two that sort of still had some compliance, and I was able to put a bit of rubber rejuve on, and it's loosened them up a bit, and they do sound pretty good. And now I've got this sort of new arrangement with the mixer. I wouldn't mind having a bit of a go with this. So I just have to check that I've got everything switched in that I need to. I think that's correct. Yep, that looks all right. I'll bring the mic over here, and we'll just have a listen to this because it's sort of an authentic 60s experience. We played some Eartha Kitt last week when Eo was here using the same arrangement, but I've fine-tuned things a bit more since then. So it's all a bit out of order because we're sort of playing the classical selection at this point, but I'll play one other. This is from a sort of a sampler record for Radiola, and from early 50s, I think. It's pretty early. It's a 10-inch LP, and it's Hans Arno Simon and his soloist, and a piece called Our Rhythm. So we'll just see if I can use the new preamp and everything, and we'll see what happens when I cue this up. That's not supposed to happen. Oh, there we go. That's looking a bit better. And what we'll have to do is just let this... I've got the... oh, wait a minute. I've got to switch the fader up. Yeah, it's a bit of a juggling act. I'm going to find a slick way of doing this so I can really do the DJ thing. But anyhow, have a listen to a 1960s Autophon experience. Yes, I need to put on my best Godfrey Stanton Hicks accent and post-announce that and say something very contrived like, "You heard, then, our rhythm, Hans Arno Simon and his soloist, recorded on Radiola." There we have it. Well, there's more where that came from. We'll have to look at the rest of that disc because there's all sorts of interesting samplers. Now, I've been testing a lot this week. I've been mucking around, pulling things apart and reconfiguring. I'm not certain I've got everything as I'd like it yet, but we're getting there. But I have had one test record which I've been playing ad nauseum. I played it so many times. It's another LP. It's a... yes, I've been playing this record just basically continuously, and it's the Mozart's first violin concerto. It's a recording with Thibaut Varga and the Philharmonic Orchestra with Walter Susskind. Now, I have a feeling I played the last movement of this on one of my earlier missions, but anyhow, since we're sort of in autophon mode, I'll put this onto the buyer table. This is on the 16-inch buyer table and a autophon arm, which has been pieced together, and the Type A cartridge, and we'll have a listen to... We'll just play the first movement. It's a wonderful concerto, but we haven't got a lot of time, so we'll hear the first movement, and this has been my test material for the week. So, yeah, we'll have a... we'll let this one run its course, and then we'll have a bit of a special feature, VK3SL testing. Okay, we just heard the first movement of Mozart's very first violin concerto. It's a work he wrote when he was a teenager. I think he was only about 17 or 18 when he wrote that, which is just astonishing when you think of it. Magnificent work. It's K207 in B-flat major. It's been the test record of the week. We heard Thibaut Varga with the Philharmonic Orchestra. And I always think of, when I hear the name Walter Susskind, I think of Dr. A.E. Floyd. Because he says, I think it's one of those recordings of Dr. A.E. Floyd, he says, Walter Susskind. Yes, on a Columbia, an early 60s Columbia. So that's our authentic 60s experience there. All right, swing the microphone over. And, all right, the next thing, yes, I wanted to play a bit of a very long work. We'll only hear a small section of it because time is running out and I'm really tired tonight. This heat is just stifling in here. There's no sort of thoroughfare for the air to go. So I've got the fan door open and the fan blowing in, but yeah, it's still not making a lot of difference. Yes. So this story, well, how do I start? Dvorak, always been a favourite composer, and one of his very great personal works is the Stabat Mater. It's a cantata based on a ecclesiastic theme. It's based on I can't remember what. It's a biblical text anyhow. But it's a very religious work, written for full choir and symphony orchestra. It's an early work of Dvorak's. He wrote it in the in 1870s, late 1870s, and it's a work which is imbued by terrible personal tragedy on his part because he wrote it in memory of his daughter who died. Tragically, his daughter died as an infant, and he wrote this work started writing this work in her memory. And while he was composing it, his only two other children died of illness within that time, and he was utterly heartbroken, as you could imagine. So it's a work that just has incredible personal involvement. Now, I mention all of this, and this work comes to mind because I heard it on the radio earlier in the week, a live performance of this in Melbourne, and I wish I'd known because I would have liked to have been involved in some way, because when we lived in Prague many years ago, one of the things we did was Kate and I joined the Strahov Monastery Choir, and we sang with that choir, and I played in the orchestra for the choir for a bit as well. And one of the performances we gave was of Dvorak's Stabat Mater, and it was at the main concert hall in Prague. And it was a very memorable, incredibly memorable experience because the work is just all-encompassing, and it's otherworldly, really. And it's just when you sing or when you participate in a work of that magnitude, it just never leaves you. And I think everyone who's performed, who's had some association with Dvorak's Stabat Mater feels the same. It's a work that sort of has a sacred place in people's esteem or in their hearts or whatever. And so for Kate and I, it's a piece that we come back to and are profoundly moved, and it brings back a huge number of associations. Anyhow, it was on the radio this week, and it was a really moving experience. So I thought, well, you've got to pick up on the themes of the week for these test transmissions. So I'll play a bit of it. And I'll just play the opening section, which is just, as I said, it's otherworldly. It's wonderful music. And we'll hear the Czech Philharmonic with Jakub Husler. Now, this is a memorial concert for the conductor the conductor Yuri Belcevek, who passed away quite recently. So this concert's sort of in his memory. He was the main conductor for the Czech Phil. So anyhow, we'll have a listen to the opening movement of this, and you can hear its expansiveness, and it's just, you can only imagine the terrible grief Dvorak must have completely consumed him, and his commitment to the cause. So a lot more could be said, but I'll let the music play and see if if you feel something of its magnitude. So we'll listen to about 10 minutes of the Dvorak Stabat Mater. I'm VK3SL. Yeah, we just heard the first movement from Dvorak's Stabat Mater. That was the Stabat Mater Dolorosa, the Andante con moto first movement, performed by the Czech Philharmonic under Jakub Whistler. That's a live performance on YouTube, recorded last year at the Czech Philharmonic Hall. And I won't go through all the artists, but this is the first movement. The work goes for an hour and a half, and that's just one part of it, but very moving music. I was going to wind up with some music of Arvo Pärt, actually, but it's getting pretty late, and I'm quite tired. So what I might do is just leave it there today, and we'll have a listen to Spiegel and Spiegel next time, and we'll let that one ride. But thank you for listening, those who have hung out this long, and I will listen back on Channel D for a short while. I could probably dial in the other mode as well. I haven't fully tested it, but if someone wants to come up on Talkie, Dave, if you're there, want to come up on Talkie, that's something I could try too. I could try the same password as we had before and give that a go, if you like. But you may not want to. All right, we'll leave it at that. I'll be listening back, and we'll catch up next week. This is VK3SL, now shortly concluding test transmission on 162 metres and the streaming service, and we look forward to your company next week. VK3SL now dropping by on 2 metres and ready for any callbacks. Cheers for now.